It's funny you say that. A girlfriend of mine once told me, a long time ago, that she was attracted to me because I was interested in everything. She said she left me for the same reason. What I didn't tell Carla was that the girlfriend had described me as interested in everything and committed to nothing. It still rankled. It still hurt. It was still true. Are you interested in helping me with something? Carla asked. Her tone was suddenly serious, portentous. So that's it, I thought. That's why she came to see me. She wants something. The spiteful cat of wounded pride arched behind my eyes. She didn't miss me, she wanted something from me. But she had come, she was asking me, not someone else, and there was salvage in that. Looking into those serious green eyes, I sensed that it was rare for her to ask anyone for help. I also had the feeling that a great deal, maybe too much, was balanced in it. Sure, I said, careful not to hesitate for too long. What do you want me to do? She swallowed hard, pushing past an obvious reluctance, and spoke in a rush of words. There's this girl, a friend of mine. Her name's Lisa. She's got herself in a very bad situation. She started working at this place, a place for foreign call girls. Anyway, Lisa messed up. Now she owes money, a lot of it, and the madam who runs the place where she works won't let her go. I want to get her out of there. I don't have much, but I think. It's not the money. I've got the money. But the woman who runs the place has taken a liking to Lisa. Even if we pay, she won't let her go. I know what she's like. It's personal now. The money's just an excuse. What she really wants is to break Lisa, a little at a time, until there's nothing left. She hates her, because Lisa's beautiful and bright and she's got guts. She won't let her leave. You want us to break her out of there? Not exactly. I know some people, I said, thinking of Abdullah Taheri and his mafia friends. They're not afraid of a fight. We could ask them to help. No, I've got friends here, too. They could get her out of there easy enough, but that wouldn't stop the heavies from finding her and taking it out on her later. They don't mess around. They use acid. Lisa wouldn't be the first girl to get acid thrown in her face because she got on the wrong side of Madame Joe. We can't risk it. Whatever we do, it has to be in a way that convinces her to leave Lisa alone, forever. I was uneasy about it. I sensed that there was more to it than Carla was telling me. Did you say Madame Joe? Yes. Have you heard of her? A bit, I nodded. I don't know how much of it to believe. People say some pretty wild and dirty things about her. The wild things. I don't know, but the dirty things are all true, take it from me. I didn't feel any better about it. Why doesn't she just run away, this friend of yours? Why doesn't she get on a plane, and get the hell back to, where did you say she came from? She's American. Look, if I could make her go back to the States, there wouldn't be a problem. But she won't go back. She won't leave Bombay. She'll never leave Bombay. She's a junkie. That's a big part of it. But there's more than that. Stuff from her past, stuff she can't face back there. So she won't go. I've tried to talk her into it, but it's no good. She just won't. And I can't say that I blame her. I've got issues of my own, things in my past I'd rather not go back to. Things I won't go back to. And you've got a plan, to get this girl out, I mean? Yes. I want you to pretend that you're someone from the American embassy, some kind of consulate officer. I've already set it up. You won't have to do much. I'll do most of the talking. We'll tell them that Lisa's father is some big honcho in America with ties to the government, and that you've had orders to get her out of there and keep an eye on her. I'll have all that straight before you even walk in the door. It sounds pretty fuzzy to me, Carla. You think that'll be enough? She took a bundle of beedies from her pocket and lit two of them with a cigarette lighter, holding the small cigarettes in one hand and playing the flame over them with the other. She passed one to me, and puffed deeply on her own before answering me. I think so. It's the best thing I've come up with. I talked it over with Lisa, and she says she thinks it'll work. If Madame Joe gets her money, and if she believes you're from the embassy, and if she's convinced that she'll get into trouble with the embassy or the government if she hassles Lisa anymore, I think she'll leave her alone. There's a lot of ifs in there, I know. A lot of it really depends on you. It depends on her, too, this. Madam, do you think she'll believe it? Believe me? We'll have to play it exactly right. She's more cunning than clever, but she's not stupid. Do you think I can do this? How's your American accent? She asked with a little embarrassed laugh. I was an actor once, I muttered, in another life. That's great, she said, reaching out to touch my forearm. Her long, slender fingers felt cool against my warm skin. I don't know, I frowned. It's a lot of responsibility if it doesn't go down right. If something happens to the girl, or to you. She's my friend. It's my idea. The responsibility's mine. I'd feel better about it, you know, just fighting my way in there, and fighting my way out again. This embassy thing. There's so many ways it could go wrong. I wouldn't ask you if I didn't think it was the right way to go, and if I wasn't sure you could do it, Lynn. She fell silent, waiting. I let her wait, but I knew the answer already. She might have thought I was weighing it up, trying to make up my mind. In fact, I was only thinking about why I was going to do it. Is it for her? I asked myself. Am I committed, or just interested? Why did I hug the bear? I smiled. When do we do this? She smiled back. In a couple of days. I've got to do a bit of stuff first, to set it all up. She threw the finished beady away, and took a step towards me. I think she might have kissed me, but just then a frightened clamor of shouting and shrieks started up among the people, and they ran to join us at the windows. In the jam of bodies, Prabaker pushed his head through, under my arm and next to Carla. Municipality, he shouted. BMC is coming. Bombay Municipal Corporation. Look there. What is it? What's happening? Carla asked. Her voice was all but lost in the shouts and screams. It's the council. They're going to tear down some houses, I called back, my lips close to her ear. They do this every month or so. They're trying to keep the slum under control, to stop it from spreading outside the edge, there, where it meets the street. We looked down near the main street to see 4, 5, 6 large, dark blue police trucks rolling into an open area that was a kind of no man's land, enclosed by the crescent of the slum. The heavy trucks were covered with canvas tarpaulins. We couldn't see inside them, but we knew they contained squads of cops, 20 or more men to each truck. An open tray truck, loaded with council workers and their equipment, drove between the parked police vehicles and stopped near the huts. Several officers climbed down from the police trucks and deployed their men in 2 rows. The council workers, themselves mostly slum dwellers from other slums, leapt from their truck and set about their task of demolition. Each man had a rope and grappling hook that he swung onto the roof of a hut until it caught fast. He then tugged on the rope, collapsing the fragile hut. The people had just enough time to gather the bare essentials, babies, money, papers. Everything else was tumbled and raked into the wreckage. Kerosene stoves and cooking pots, bags and bedding, clothes and children's toys. People scattered in panic. The police stopped some of them, and then marched a few young men away to the waiting trucks. The people at our windows grew silent as they watched. From our vantage point, we could see the destruction far below, but we couldn't hear even the loudest noise of it. Somehow, the soundlessness of that methodical, scouring obliteration struck at us all. I hadn't noticed the wind until then. It was a moaning wail in that eerie quiet. I knew that all through the 35 floors of the building, above and below us, other people stared mute witness, just as we did. Although the houses of construction workers in the legal slum were safe, all work on the site stopped in sympathy. The workers understood that when the building was finished it would be their own homes that would lie in ruins. They knew that the ritual they'd all seen so many times before would be played out for the last time. The ghetto would be gutted and burned, and a car park for limousines would take its place. I looked at the faces around me, faces struck with compassion and dread. In the eyes of some, I saw smolders of shame for what the council's power had forced too many of us to think. Thank God. Thank God it's not me. Great luck, your house is safe, Linbaba. Yours and mine also, Prabaker said as we watched the cops and council workers climb back onto their trucks and drive away. They'd scythed and smashed a swath, 100 meters long and 10 meters wide, at the northeastern corner of the illegal slum. About 60 houses had been obliterated, the homes of at least 200 people. The entire operation had taken less than 20 minutes. Where will they go? Carla asked quietly. Most of it will be back again by this time tomorrow. Next month they'll come and knock them down again, or another bunch of huts just like them in another part of the slum. Then that'll be rebuilt. But it's still a big loss. All their things have been smashed up. They have to buy new bamboo and mats and stuff to make new houses. And people got arrested. We might not see them again for months. I don't know what scares me more, she declared, the madness that smashes people down, or their ability to endure it. Most of the people had left the window, but Carla and I remained as close together as we'd been in the push and shove of the crowd. My arm was around her shoulder. On the ground, 20 floors below, people began to pick through the rubble of their homes. Canvas and plastic shelters were already being erected for the elderly, the babies, and the smallest children. She turned to face me, and I kissed her. The taut bow of her lips dissolved on mine in concessions of flesh to flesh. There was such sad tenderness in it that, for a second or two, I floated free, and was adrift in its inexpressible kindnesses. I'd thought of Carla as streetwise and tough and almost cold, but that kiss was pure, undisguised vulnerability. The gentle loveliness of it shocked me, and I was the first to pull away. "I'm sorry. I didn't," I faltered. "It's okay," she smiled, leaning away from me with her hands on my chest. "But we might be making one of those pretty girls at the feast jealous." "Who? Are you saying you don't have a girl here?" "No, of course not." I frowned. "I've got to stop listening to Didier," she sighed. "It was his idea. He thinks you must have a girlfriend here. He thinks that's the only reason you'd stay in the slum. He said that's the only reason any foreigner would stay in the slum." "I don't have a girlfriend, Carla, not here or anywhere." "I'm in love with you." "No you're not," she snapped, and it was like a slap. "I can't help it. For a long time now I—" "Stop it," she interrupted me again. You're not. Oh, God, how I hate love." "You can't hate love, Carla," I said, laughing gently, and trying to lighten her mood. "Maybe not, but you sure as hell can be sick of it. It's such a huge arrogance, to love someone, and there's too much of it around. There's too much love in the world. Sometimes I think that's what heaven is. A place where everybody's happy because nobody loves anybody else, ever." The wind lashed her hair into her face, and she pushed it back with both hands, holding it there with her fingers fanned out across her forehead. She was staring down at her feet. What the fuck ever happened to good, old, meaningless sex, without any strings attached? She rasped, her lips drawn tightly over her teeth. It wasn't a question, but I answered it anyway. "I'm not ruling that out, as a fallback position, so to speak." "Look, I don't want to be in love," she stated, in a softer tone. She raised her eyes to stare into mine. "I don't want anyone to be in love with me. It hasn't been good to me, the romance thing. I don't think it's kind to anyone, Carla." "My point, exactly. But when it happens, you haven't got a choice. I don't think it's something any of us do by choice. And I don't want to put any pressure on you. I'm just in love with you, that's all. I've been in love with you for a while, and I finally had to say it. It doesn't mean you have to do anything about it, or me either, for that matter. I don't know. I'm just, Jesus. But I'm happy to like you. I like you a lot. I'll be head over heels in like with you, Lynn, if that's enough." Her eyes were honest, and yet I knew there was a lot she wasn't telling me. Her eyes were brave, and yet she was afraid. When I relented, and smiled at her, she laughed. I laughed, too. "Is it enough for now?" "Sure," I lied. "Sure." But already, like the people in the ghetto, hundreds of feet below, I was picking through the smashed houses in my heart, and rebuilding on the ruin. Chapter 13. Despite the fact that only a handful of people could claim to have seen Madame Jo with their own eyes, she was the main attraction, Carla assured me, for many of those who visited the palace. Her clients were rich men, executive-level businessmen, politicians, and gangsters. The palace offered them foreign girls, exclusively, for no Indian girls ever worked there, and elaborate facilities for the realization of their wildest sexual fantasies. The strangest of those illicit pleasures, devised by Madame Jo personally, were the subject of shocked, breathless whispers throughout the city, but influential contacts and substantial bribes meant that the palace was immune from raids or even close scrutiny. And although there were other places in Bombay that provided equal indulgence and security, none of them were as popular as Madame Jo's because none had the Madame herself. In the end, what kept men coming to the palace wasn't the skill and loveliness of the women they could have there. It was the mystery of the woman they couldn't have, the invisible beauty of Madame Jo. People said she was Russian, but that detail, like all the others concerning her private life, seemed to be unverifiable. It was accepted, Carla said, simply because it was the most persistent rumor. One clear fact was that she'd arrived in New Delhi during the 1960s, a decade as wild for that city as it was for most Western capitals. The new part of the city was celebrating its 30th year, then, and Old Delhi its 300th. Madame Jo, most sources agreed, was 29. Legend had it that she'd been the mistress of a KGB officer who'd employed her unique beauty to suborn prominent Congress Party officials. The Congress Party governed India through those years with what seemed to be an unassailable lead in every national poll. Many of the party faithful, and even their enemies, believed that the Congress Party would continue to rule the Indian motherland for 100 years. Power over congressmen, therefore, was power over the nation. The gossip about her years in Delhi prowled from scandals and suicides to political murder. Carla said that she'd heard so many different versions of the stories, from such a wide variety of people, she began to think that the truth, whatever it might have been, wasn't really important to them. Madame Jo had become a kind of portmanteau figure. People packed the details of their own obsessions into her life. One said she possessed a fortune in precious gems that she kept in a Hessian sack, another talked with authority about her addiction to various drugs, and a third whispered of satanic rites and cannibalism. People say a lot of really weird stuff about her, and I think some of it's just crap, but the bottom line is, she's dangerous, Carla said. Devious and dangerous. I'm not kidding. Don't underestimate her. When she moved from Delhi to Bombay, 6 years ago, there was a murder trial, and she was at the center of it. 2 very important guys ended up dead in her Delhi palace, both of them with their throats cut. One of them happened to be a police inspector. The trial fell apart when one witness against her disappeared, and another was found hanging from the doorway of his house. She left Delhi to set up shop in Bombay, and within the first 6 months there was another murder, only a block away from the palace, and a lot of people connected her with it. But she's got so much stuff on so many people, stuff that goes all the way to the top. They can't touch her. She can do pretty much what she likes, because she knows she'll get away with it. If you want to get out of this, now's your chance. We were in a Bumblebee, one of the ubiquitous black and yellow Fiat taxis, traveling south through the Steel Bazaar. Traffic was heavy. Hundreds of wooden handcarts, longer and taller and wider than a car when fully laden, trundled along between buses and trucks, pushed by barefoot porters, 6 men to each cart. The main streets of the Steel Bazaar were crammed with small and medium shops. They sold every kind of metal houseware, from kerosene stoves to stainless steel sinks, and most of the cast iron and sheet metal products required by builders, shopfitters, and decorators. The shops themselves were adorned with gleaming metal wares, strung in such brilliantly polished plenty and such artful array that they often attracted the camera lenses of tourists. Behind the glossy, commercial ramble of the streets, however, were the hidden lanes, where men who were paid in cents, rather than dollars, worked at black and gritty furnaces to produce those shining lures. The windows of the cab were open, but no breeze stirred through them. It was hot and still in the sluggish churn of traffic. We'd stopped at Carla's apartment on the way, where I'd swapped my t-shirt, jeans, and boots for a pair of dress shoes, conservatively cut black trousers, a starched white shirt, and a tie. The only thing I'd like to get out of, at the moment, are these clothes, I grumbled. What's wrong with them? She asked, a mischievous gleam in her eye. They're itchy and horrible. They'll be fine. I hope we don't have an accident. I'd really hate to get killed in these clothes. Actually, they look pretty good on you. Oh, shit, make my day. Hey, come on, she chided, curling her lip in an affable smirk. Her accent, the accent I'd come to love and consider the most interesting in the world, gave every word a rounded resonance that thrilled me. The music of that accent was Italian, its shape was German, its humor and its attitude were American, and its color was Indian. Being so fussy about dressing down, the way you do, is a kind of vanity, you know. It's fairly conceited, too. I don't dress down. I just hate clothes. No, you don't, you love clothes. What is this? I've got 1 pair of boots, 1 pair of jeans, 1 shirt, 2 t-shirts, and a couple of lungies. That's it, my whole wardrobe. If I'm not wearing it, it's hanging on a nail in my hut. That's my point. You love clothes so much that you can't bear to wear anything but the few things that feel just right. I fidgeted with the prickly collar of the shirt. Well, Carla, These clothes are a long way from just right. How come you've got so many men's clothes at your place, anyway? You've got more men's clothes than I have. The last 2 guys who lived with me left in kind of a hurry. So much of a hurry that they left their clothes behind? Yes. Why? One of them got very busy, she said quietly. Busy doing what? He was breaking a mess of laws, so he probably wouldn't want me to talk about it. Did you kick him out? No. She said it flatly, but with such a clear sense of regret that I let it go. And, the other guy? You don't want to know. I did want to know, but she turned her face away to stare out the window, and there was a finality in the gesture that warned and prohibited. I'd heard that Carla had once lived with someone named Ahmed, an Afghan. People didn't talk about it much, and I'd assumed that they'd broken up years before. In the year that I knew her, she'd lived alone in the apartment, and I hadn't realized until that moment how deeply that image of her had insinuated itself into my sense of who she was and how she lived. Despite her protest that she didn't like to be alone, I'd thought of her as one of those people who never lived with others. Someone who let people visit or even stay overnight, but never more than that. I looked at the back of her head, at the small part of her profile, at the barely perceptible bump of her breasts beneath the green shawl, and the long, thin fingers making prayer in her lap, and I couldn't imagine her living with someone. Breakfast and bare backs, bathroom noises and bad moods, domestic and demi-married. It was impossible to see her in that. Perversely, I found it easier to imagine Ahmed, the Afghan roommate I'd never met, than it was to imagine her as anything but alone and complete. We sat in silence for 5 minutes, a silence calibrated by the slow metronome of the taxi's meter. An orange banner hanging from the dashboard of the car proclaimed that the driver, like many others in Bombay, was from Uttar Pradesh, a large and populous state in India's northeast. Our slow progress through the traffic jam gave him many chances to study us in the rear vision mirror. He was intrigued. Carla had spoken to him in fluent Hindi, giving him precise, street-by-street directions to the palace. We were foreigners who behaved like locals. He decided to test us. Sister fucking traffic. He muttered in street Hindi, as if to himself, but his eyes never left the mirror. The whole fucking city is constipated today. A 20 rupee tip might make a good laxative, Carla fired back in Hindi. What are you doing, renting this taxi by the hour? Get a move on, brother. Yes, miss. The driver replied in English, through delighted laughter. He applied himself with more energy to bullying his way through the traffic. So what did happen to him? I asked her. To who? To the other guy you lived with, the one who didn't break a mess of laws. He died, if you must know, she said, her teeth clenched. So, how did he die? They say he poisoned himself. They say? Yeah, she sighed, looking away to let her eyes drift in the shuffle of people on the street. We drove in silence for a few moments, and then I had to speak. Which one of them owned this outfit I'm wearing? The law-breaking one, or the dead one? The dead one. Okay. I bought it for him to get buried in. Shit. What? She demanded, turning to face me again, and frowning hard. Shit. Nothing, but remind me to get the name of your dry cleaner. We didn't need it. They buried him in a different outfit of clothes. I bought the suit, but in the end we didn't use it. I see. I told you that you didn't want to know. No, it's okay. I mumbled, and in fact I felt a cruel, secret relief that the former lover was dead, gone, no competition to me. I was too young, then, to know that dead lovers are the toughest rivals. Still, Carla, I don't mean to be picky, but you've got to admit it's just a tad creepy. We're off on a dangerous mission, and I'm sitting here in a dead guy's burial suit. You're just being superstitious. No, I'm not. Yes, you are. I'm not superstitious. Yes, you are. No, I'm not. Of course you are, she said, giving me her first real smile since we'd started in the taxi. Everyone in the whole world is superstitious. I don't want to fight about it. It might be bad luck. Don't worry, she laughed. We'll be okay. Look, here are your business cards. Madame Jo likes to collect them. She'll ask you for one. And she'll keep it, in case she needs a favor from you. But if it ever comes to that, she'll find that you're long gone from the embassy. The cards were made of pearl white, textured, linen paper, and the words were embossed in liquid black italic. They declared that Gilbert Parker was a consular undersecretary at the Embassy of the United States of America. Gilbert? I grunted. So what? So, this taxi crashes, and they gouge my body out of the wreckage, wearing these clothes, and they identify me as Gilbert. I'm not feeling any better about this, Carla, I have to say. Well, you'll have to settle for Gilbert at the moment. There really is a Gilbert Parker at the embassy. His tour of duty in Bombay finishes today. That's why we picked him. He goes back to the States tonight. So everything will check out okay. I don't think she'll be checking up on you too much, anyway. Maybe a phone call, but she might not even do that. If she wants to get in touch with you, she'll do it through me. She had some trouble with the British embassy last year. It cost her plenty, and a German diplomat got into a real mess at the palace a few months ago. She had to call in a lot of dues to cover that up. The embassies are the only people who can really hurt her, so she won't be pushing it. Just be polite and firm when you speak to her. And speak some Hindi. She'll expect it, and it'll smooth over any trouble with your accent. That's one of the reasons why I asked you to help me with this, you know. You've picked up a lot of Hindi, for someone who's only been here a year. 14 months, I corrected her, feeling slighted by her shorter estimate. 2 months when I first got to Bombay, 6 months in Prabhakars village, and now nearly 6 months in the slum. 14 months. Yes, okay, 14 months. I thought no one got to meet this Madame Joe, I said, hoping to shift the puzzled, uncomfortable frown from her features. You said she kept herself hidden away, and never talked to anyone. That's true, but it's a little more complicated than that, Carla replied, softly. A meditation of memories clouded her eyes for a moment, but then she concentrated again with obvious effort. She lives on the top floor, and has everything she needs up there. She never goes out. She has 2 servants who bring food and clothes and stuff up to her. She can move around the building without being seen because there's a lot of hidden passageways and staircases. She can look in on most of the rooms through 2-way mirrors or metal air vents. She likes to watch. Sometimes she talks to people through a screen. You can't see her, but she can see you. So how does anyone know what she looks like? Her photographer. Her what? She has photographs taken of herself. A new one, every month or so. She gives them out to favored clients. It's pretty weird, I muttered, not really interested in Madame Joe, but wanting Carla to go on talking. I watched her red-pink lips form each word. Lips I'd kissed only days before, and her speaking mouth was a sublime performance of perfect flesh. She could have been reading from a month-old newspaper, and I would have been just as delighted to watch her face, her eyes, and her lips as she talked. Why does she do it? Do what? She asked, her eyes narrowing with the question. Why does she hide herself away like that? I don't think anyone knows. She took out 2 beedies, lit them, and gave me one. Her hands appeared to be trembling. It's like I was saying before, there's so much crazy talk about her. I've heard people say she was horribly disfigured in an accident, and she hides her face because of it. They say the photos are retouched to cover up the scars. I've heard people say she has leprosy or some other disease. One friend of mine says she doesn't exist at all. He says it's just a lie, a kind of conspiracy, to hide who really runs the place and what goes on there. What do you think? I've spoken to her, through the screen. I think she's so incredibly, psychopathically vain that she sort of hates herself for getting older. I think she can't bear to be less than perfect. A lot of people say she was beautiful. Really, you'd be surprised. A lot of people say that. In her photos she hasn't aged past 27 or 30. There aren't any lines or wrinkles. There's no shadows under the eyes. Every black hair is in its place. I think she's so in love with her own beauty, she'll never let anyone see her as she really is. I think it's like she's mad with love for herself. I think that even if she lives to be 90, those monthly photos will still show that same 30-year-old blank. How do you know so much about her? I asked. How did you meet her? I'm a facilitator. It was part of my job. That doesn't tell me a lot. How much do you need to know? It was a simple question, and there was a simple answer. I love you, and I want to know everything. But there was a hard edge to her voice and a cold light in her eyes, and I faltered. I'm not trying to pry, Carla. I didn't know it was such a touchy area. I've known you for more than a year and, okay, I haven't seen you every day, or even every month, but I've never asked you what you do, or how you make your living. I don't think that qualifies me as the nosy type. I put people together, she said, relaxing a little, and I make sure they're having the right amount of fun to seal a deal. I get paid to keep people in the deal-making mood, and give them what they want. Some of them, quite a few of them, as it happens, want to spend time at Madame Jo's palace. The real question is why people are so crazy about her. She's dangerous. I think she's completely insane. But people would do almost anything to meet her. What do you think? She sighed, exasperated. I can't tell you. It's not just the sex thing. Sure, the prettiest foreign girls in Bombay work for her, and she trains them in some very weird specialties, but people would still come to her even if there weren't any gorgeous girls there. I don't get it. I've done what people want, and I've taken them to the palace. A few of them even got to meet her in person, like I did, through the screen, but I've never been able to figure it out. They come out of the palace like they've had an audience with Joan of Arc. They're high on it, but not me. She gives me the creeps, and she always has. You don't like her much, do you? It's worse than that. I hate her, Lynn. I hate her, and I wish she was dead. It was my turn to withdraw. I wrapped the silence around myself like a scarf, and stared past her softly sculptured profile to the haphazard beauty of the street. In truth, Madame Jo's mystery didn't matter to me. I had no interest in her, then, beyond the mission Carla had given me. I was in love with the beautiful Swiss woman sitting beside me in the cab, and she was mysterious enough. I wanted to know about her. I wanted to know how she came to live in Bombay, and what her connection was to the weirdness of Madame Jo, and why she never talked about herself. But no matter how badly I wanted to know, everything about her, I couldn't press it. I had no right to ask for more because I'd kept all of my secrets from her. I'd lied to her, saying that I came from New Zealand, and that I had no family. I hadn't even told her my real name. And because I was in love with her, I felt trapped by those fictions. She'd kissed me, and it was good, honest and good. But I didn't know if the truth in that kiss was the beginning for us or the end. My strongest hope was that the mission would bring us together. I hoped it would be enough to break through both our walls of secrets and lies. I didn't underestimate the task she'd set for me. I knew it might go wrong, and I might have to fight to bring Lisa out of the palace. I was ready. There was a knife in a leather scabbard tucked into the waistband of my trousers under my shirt. It had a long, heavy, sharp blade. I knew that with a good knife I could handle 2 men. I'd fought men in knife fights before, in prison. A knife, in the hand of a man who knows how to use it and isn't afraid to drive it into other human bodies, is still, despite its ancient origin, the most effective close-order weapon after the gun. Sitting there in the cab, silent and still, I prepared myself for the fight. A little movie, a preview of the bloodshed to come, played itself out in my mind. I would have to keep my left hand free, to lead or drag Lisa and Carla out of the palace. My right hand would have to force a path through any resistance. I wasn't afraid. I knew that if the fighting started, when the fighting started, I would slash and punch and stab without thinking. The cab had bluffed its way through the strangle of traffic, and we picked up speed on the wider streets near a steep overpass. A blessing of fresh wind cooled us, and hair that had been lank and wet with sweat was dry in seconds. Carla fidgeted, tossed her beady cigarette out of the open window, and rifled through the contents of her patent leather shoulder bag. She took out a cigarette packet. It contained thick, ready-made joints with tapered, twisted ends. She lit one. "I need a kicker," she said, inhaling deeply. The flower leaf scent of hashish blossomed in the cab. She took a few puffs, and then offered the joint to me. "Do you think it'll help?" "Probably not." It was strong, Kashmiri hash. I felt the momentary loosening of stomach, neck, and shoulder muscles as the stone took hold. The driver sniffed loudly, theatrically, adjusting his mirror to see the back seat more clearly. I gave the joint back to Carla. She sucked at it a few more times, and then passed it to the driver. "Charas Pitta?" she asked. "You smoke charas?" "Huh, Munta," he said, laughing and accepting it happily. "Say yes." He smoked it halfway down, and passed it back. "Aka charas. First number. I have it American music, disco, very first number United States American music disco. You like you hear." He snapped a cassette into his dashboard player and threw the volume to maximum. Seconds later, The song We Are Family, by Sister Sledge, thumped out of the speakers behind our heads with numbing plangency. Carla whooped for joy. The driver switched the volume to 0, and asked if we liked it. Carla whooped again, and passed him the joint. He turned the music back to max. We smoked, and sang along, and drove past 1,000 years of street, from barefoot peasant boys on bullock carts to businessmen buying computers. Within sight of the palace, the driver pulled over beside an open chai shop. He pointed to it, with a jerk of his thumb, and told Carla that he would wait for her there. I knew enough cab drivers, and had traveled enough in Bombay cabs, to know that the driver's offer to wait was a decent gesture of concern for her, and not just hunger for work or tips or something else. He liked her. I'd seen it before, that quirky and spontaneous infatuation. Carla was young and attractive, sure, but most of the driver's reaction was inspired by her fluency with his language, and the way she used it to deal with him. A German cab driver might be pleased that a foreigner had learned to speak German. He might even say that he was pleased. Or say nothing at all. The same might be true of a French cab driver, or an American, or an Australian. But an Indian will be so pleased that if he likes something else about you, your eyes, or your smile, or the way you react to a beggar at the window of his cab, he'll feel bonded to you, instantly. He'll be prepared to do things for you, go out of his way, put himself at risk, and even do dangerous or illegal things. If you've given him an address he doesn't like, such as the palace, he'll be prepared to wait for you, just to be sure that you're safe. You could come out an hour later, and ignore him completely, and he would smile and drive away, happy to know that no harm had come to you. It happened to me many times in Bombay, but never in any other city. It's one of the 500 things I love about Indians. If they like you, they do it quickly, and not by half. Carla paid his fare and the promised tip, and told him not to wait. We both knew that he would. The palace was a huge building, triple-fronted and 3 stories tall. The street windows were barred with wrought iron curlicues beaten into the shape of acanthus leaves. It was older than many other buildings on the street, and restored, not renovated. Original detail had been carefully preserved. The heavy stone architraves over the door and windows had been chiseled into coronets of 5-pointed stars. That meticulous craftsmanship, once common in the city, was all but a lost art. There was an alleyway on the right-hand side of the building, and the stonemasons had lavished their handiwork on the coin. Every second stone from the ground to below the eaves was faceted like a jewel. A glassed-in balcony ran the width of the 3rd floor, the rooms within concealed by bamboo blinds. The walls of the building were gray, the door black. To my surprise, the door simply opened when Carla touched it, and we stepped inside. We entered a long, cool corridor, darker than the sunlit street but softly illuminated by lily-shaped lamps of fluted glass. There was wallpaper, very unusual in humid Bombay, with the repetitive Compton pattern of William Morris in olive green and flesh pinks. A smell of incense and flowers permeated, and the eerie, padded silences of closed rooms surrounded us. A man was standing in the hallway, facing us, with his hands loosely clasped in front of him. He was tall and thin. His fine, dark brown hair was pulled back severely and tied into a long plait that reached to his hips. He had no eyebrows, but very thick eyelashes, so thick that I thought they must be false. Some designs, in swirls and scrolls, were drawn on his pale face from his lips to his pointed chin. He was dressed in a black, silk kurta pajama and clear plastic sandals. "Hello, Rajan," Carla greeted him, icily. "Ram Ram, Miss Carla," he replied, using the Hindu greeting. His voice was a sneering hiss. "Madam will see you immediately. You are to go straight up. I will bring cold drinks. You know the way." He stood to one side, and gestured towards the stairs at the end of the hall. The fingers of his outstretched hand were stained with henna stencils. They were the longest fingers I'd ever seen. As we walked past him, I saw that the scrolled designs on his lower lip and chin were actually tattoos. "Rajan is creepy enough," I muttered, as Carla and I climbed the stairs together. "He's one of Madame Jo's 2 personal servants. He's a eunuch, a castrato, and a lot creepier than he looks," she whispered enigmatically. We climbed the wide stairs to the 2nd floor, our footsteps swallowed by thick carpet and heavy teakwood newels and handrails. There were framed photographs and paintings on the walls, all of them portraits. As I passed those images, I had the sense that there were other living, breathing people in the closed rooms, all around us. But there was no sound. Nothing. It's damn quiet, I said as we stopped in front of one of the doors. It's siesta time. Every afternoon, from 2 to 5. But it's quieter than usual because she's expecting you. Are you ready? I guess. Yes. Let's do it. She knocked twice, turned the knob, and we entered. There was nothing in the small, square space but the carpet on the floor, lace curtains drawn across the window, and 2 large, flat cushions. Carla took my arm and steered me toward the cushions. The half-light of late afternoon glowed through the cream-colored lace. The walls were bare and painted tan brown, and there was a metal grill, about 1 meter square, set into one of them just above the skirting board. We knelt on the cushions in front of the grill as if we'd come to make our confession. I am not happy with you, Carla, a voice said from behind the grill. Startled, I peered into the lattice of metal, but the room beyond it was black and I could see nothing. Sitting there, in the gloom, she was invisible. Madam Joe, I do not like to be unhappy. You know that. Happiness is a myth, Carla snapped back angrily. It was invented to make us buy things. Madam Joe laughed. It was a gurgling, bronchial laugh. It was the kind of laugh that hunted down funny things and killed them stone dead. Ah, Carla, I miss you. But you neglect me. It really has been much too long since you visited me. I think you still blame me for what happened to Ahmed and Christina, even though you swear it is not so. How can I believe that you do not hold a grudge against me, when you neglect me so terribly? And now you want to take my favorite away from me. It's her father who wants to take her, madam, Carla replied, a little more gently. Ah yes, the father? She said the word as if it was a despicable insult. Her voice rasped the word across our skin. It had taken a lot of cigarettes, smoked in a particularly spiteful manner, to make that voice. Your drinks, Miss Carla, Rajan said, and I almost jumped. He'd come in behind me without making the slightest sound. He bent low to place a tray on the floor between us, and for a moment I stared into the lambent blackness of his eyes. His face was impassive, but there was no mistaking the emotion in those eyes. It was cold, naked, incomprehensible hatred. I was mesmerized by it, bewildered, and strangely ashamed. This is your American, Madam Joe said, breaking the spell. Yes, madam. His name is Parker, Gilbert Parker. He is attached to the embassy, but this is not an official visit, of course. Of course. Give Rajan your card, Mr. Parker. It was a command. I took one of the cards from my pocket and handed it to Rajan. He held it at the edges, as if he was afraid of contamination, and backed out of the room, closing the door behind him. Carla did not tell me, when she telephoned, Mr. Parker. Have you been in Bombay very long? Madam Joe asked me, switching to Hindi. Not so long, madam. You speak Hindi quite well. My compliments. Hindi is a beautiful language, I replied, using one of the stock phrases that Prabhakar had taught me to recite. It is a language of music and poetry. It is also a language of love and money, she chuckled greedily. Are you in love, Mr. Parker? I'd thought hard about what she might ask me, but I hadn't anticipated that question. And just at that moment, there was probably no other subject that could have unsettled me more. I looked at Carla, but she was staring down at her hands, and she gave me no clue. I didn't know what Madam Joe meant by the question. She hadn't asked me if I was married or single, engaged or involved. In love? I mumbled, the words sounding like an incantation in Hindi. Yes, romantic love. Your heart lost in the dream of a woman's face, your soul lost in the dream of her body. Love, Mr. Parker. Are you in it? Yes, I am. I don't know why I said it. The impression that I was making an act of confession, there, on my knees before the metal grate, was even more pronounced. How very sad for you, my dear Mr. Parker. You are in love with Carla, of course. That's how she got you to do this little job of work for her. I assure you, no, Mr. Parker, I assure you. Oh, it may be true that my Lisa's father is pining for his daughter, and that he has the power to pull some strings. But it was Carla who talked you into this, of that, I'm quite sure. I know my dear Carla, and I know her ways. Don't think for a moment that she will ever love you in return, or keep any of her promises to you, or that anything but sorrow will come of the love you feel. She will never love you. I tell you this out of friendship, Mr. Parker. This is a little gift for you. With respect, I said, through clenched teeth, we're here to talk about Lisa Carter. Of course. If I let my Lisa go with you, where will she live? I'm not sure. You're not sure? No, she will live at, Carla began. Shut up, Carla, Madam Joe snapped. I asked Parker. I don't know where she will live, I answered, as firmly as I could. I think that's up to her. There was a lengthy pause. It was becoming an effort of concentration to listen and speak in Hindi. I felt lost, in over my head. It was going badly. She'd asked me 3 questions, and I'd stumbled badly on 2 of them. Carla was my guide in that strange world, but she seemed as confused and wrong-footed as I was. Madam Joe had told her to shut up, and she'd swallowed it with a meekness I'd never seen or even imagined in her. I took a glass and drank some of the nimbu pani. The iced lime juice was spiced with something hot to the taste like chili powder. There was a shadowy movement and whisper in the darkness of the room behind the metal grate. I wondered if Rajan was in there with her. I couldn't make out the shape. She spoke. You can take Lisa with you, Mr. Parker in love. But if she decides to come back here to me, I will not give her up. Do you understand me? She will stay here, if she comes back, and I will be unhappy if you trouble me about it again. You are, of course, free to enjoy our many delights, whenever you wish, as my guest. I would like to see you, relax. Perhaps, when Carla is finished with you, you will remember my invitation? In the meantime, remember, Lisa is mine if she returns to me. That matter is finished between us, today, here and now. Yes, I understand. Thank you, madam. The relief was enormous. I felt sapped with it. We'd won. It was done, and Carla's friend was free to come with us. Madam Joe began to speak again, very quickly, and in another language. I guessed it to be German. It sounded harsh and threatening and angry, but I couldn't speak German then, and the words might have been kinder than they sounded to me. Carla responded from time to time with ja or natürlich nicht, but little else. She was rocking from side to side, sitting back on her folded legs. Her hands were in her lap. Her eyes were closed, and as I watched her, she began to cry. The tears, when they came, slipped from her closed eyelids like so many beads on a prayer chain. Some women cry easily. The tears fall as gently as fragrant raindrops in a sun shower, and leave the face clear and clean and almost radiant. Other women cry hard, and all the loveliness in them collapses in the agony of it. Carla was such a woman. There was terrible anguish written in the rivulets of those tears and the torment that creased her face. From behind the grate, the smoky voice full of spitting sibilants and crunching words continued. Carla swayed and sobbed in utter silence. Her mouth opened and then closed soundlessly. A pearl of sweat trickled from her temple across the folded wing of her cheek. More sweat stippled her upper lip, dissolving in the tears. Then there was nothing from behind the metal grate. No sound or movement or even the sense of a human presence. And with an effort of will that clenched her jaws to white and set her body trembling, Carla swept her hands over her face, and her crying ceased. She was very still. She reached out with one hand to touch me. The hand rested on my thigh, and then pressed downward with regular, gentle pressures. It was the tender, reassuring gesture she might have used to calm a frightened animal. She was staring into my eyes, but I wasn't sure if she was asking me something or telling me something. She breathed deeply, quickly. Her green eyes were almost black in the shadowed room. I didn't understand any of it. I couldn't understand the German chatter, and I had no idea what was going on between Carla and the voice behind the metal grill. I wanted to help her, but I didn't know why she'd cried, and I knew that we were probably being watched. I stood up and then helped her to stand. For a moment, she rested her face against my chest. I put my hands on her shoulders, steadying her and easing her away from me. Then the door opened, and Rajan came into the room. She is ready, Rajan hissed. Carla brushed at the knees of her loose trousers, picked up her bag, and stepped past me toward the door. Come on, she said. The interview's over. For a moment I looked at the marks, the curved indentations that her knees had made in the brocade cushion beside me on the floor. I felt tired and angry and confused. I turned to see Carla and Rajan staring at me impatiently in the doorway. As I followed them along the corridors of the palace, I grew more sullen and resentful with every step. Rajan led us to a room at the very end of a corridor. The door was open. The room was decorated with large movie posters. Lauren Bacall in a still from To Have and Have Not, Pierre Angeli from Somebody Up There Likes Me, and Sean Young from Blade Runner. A young and very beautiful woman sat on the large bed in the center of the room. Her blonde hair was long and thick, ending in spirals of lush curls. Her sky-blue eyes were large and set unusually wide apart. Her skin was flawless pink, her lips painted a deep red. A suitcase and a cosmetic case were snapped shut and resting on the floor at her golden slippered feet. "About fucking time. You're late. I'm going out of my mind here." It was a deep voice. The accent was Californian. "Gilbert had to change his clothes," Carla replied, with something of her familiar composure. "And the traffic, getting here. You don't want to know." "Gilbert?" Her nose wrinkled with distaste. "It's a long story," I said, not smiling. "Are you ready to go?" "I don't know," she said, looking at Carla. "You don't know? Hey, fuck you, Jack." She exploded, rounding on me with so much fury that I didn't see the fear behind it. "What the hell business is it of yours, anyway? There's a special anger we reserve for people who won't let us do them a good turn." My teeth began to grind with it. "Look, are you coming or not? Did she say it's okay?" Lisa asked Carla. Both women looked to Rajan, and then to the mirror on the wall behind him. Their expressions told me that Madame Jo was watching us and listening as we spoke. "It's fine. She said you can go," I told her, hoping she wouldn't comment on my imperfect American accent. "Is this for real? No bullshit?" "No bullshit," Carla said. The girl stood up quickly and grabbed at her bags. "Well, what are we waiting for? Let's get the fuck outta here before she changes her goddamn mind." Rajan stopped me at the street door and gave me a large, sealed envelope. He stared that perplexing malice into my eyes once more and then closed the door. I caught up to Carla and pulled her round to face me. "What was that all about? What do you mean?" she asked, a little smile trying to light her eyes. "It worked. We got her out. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about you and me, and that crazy game Madame Jo was playing up there." "You were crying your eyes out, Carla. What was it all about?" She glanced at Lisa, who stood close by, impatient and shielding her eyes, even though the late afternoon light wasn't bright. She looked at me again, her green eyes puzzled and tired. "Do we have to talk about this now, in public?" "No, we don't," Lisa answered for me. "I'm not talking to you," I snarled, not looking at her. My eyes were fixed on Carla's face. "You're not talking to me, either," Carla said firmly. "Not here, not now. Let's just go." "What is this?" I demanded. "You're overreacting, Lynn." "I'm overreacting," I said, almost shouting, and proving her right. I was angry that she'd told me so little of the truth, and prepared me so poorly for the interview. I was hurt that she didn't trust me enough to give me the whole story. "That's funny, that's really funny. Who is this fucking jerk?" Lisa snarled. "Shut up, Lisa," Carla said, just as Madame Jo had said it to her, only minutes before. Lisa reacted just as Carla had, with meek, sullen silence. "I don't want to talk about this now, Lynn," Carla said, turning to me with an expression of hard, reluctant disappointment. "There are few things people can do with their eyes that hurt more, and I hated to see it." Passers-by stopped near us on the street, staring and eavesdropping openly. "Look, I know there's a lot more going on here than getting Lisa out of the palace. What happened up there? How did she, how did she know about us? I'm supposed to be some guy from the embassy, and she starts talking about being in love with you. I don't get it. And who the hell are Ahmed and Christina? What happened to them? What was she talking about? One minute you're indestructible, and then the next minute you're breaking down, while Madame Nutcase is babbling away in German or whatever." "It was Swiss German, actually," she snapped, a flash of spite in the gleam of her clenched teeth. "Swiss, Chinese, so what? I just want to know what's going on. I want to help you. I want to know, well, where I stand." A few more people stopped to join the idlers. One group of 3 young men stood very close, leaning on one another's shoulders and gawking with aggressive curiosity. The taxi driver who'd brought us there was standing beside his cab, 5 meters away. He twirled his handkerchief to fan himself, watching us, smiling. He was much taller than I'd thought him to be. Tall and thin and dressed in a tightly fitting white shirt and trousers. Carla glanced over her shoulder at him. He wiped at his mustache with the red handkerchief and then tied it as a scarf around his neck. He smiled at her. His strong, white teeth were gleaming. "Where you're standing is right here, on the street, outside the palace," Carla said. She was angry and sad and strong, stronger than I was at that moment. I almost hated her for it. "Where I'm sitting is in that cab. Where I'm going is none of your damn business." She walked away. "Where the hell did you get that guy?" I heard Lisa say, as they approached the cab. The taxi driver greeted them, waggling his head happily. When they drove past me, there was music playing, Freeway of Love, and they were laughing. For one explosive moment of writhing fantasy, one saw them all together, naked, the taxi driver and Lisa and Carla. It was improbable and ridiculous, and I knew it, but the squirm was in my mind, and a white-hot thump of rage went pulsing along the thread of time and fate that connected me to Carla. Then I remembered that I'd left my boots and clothes at her apartment. "Hey," I called after the retreating cab. "My clothes." "Carla, Mr. Lin?" There was a man standing beside me. His face was familiar, but I couldn't place it immediately. "What? Abdul Kader want you, Mr. Lin." The mention of Kader's name jolted my memory. It was Nazir, Kaderbai's driver. The white car was parked nearby. How did you? What are you doing here?" "He say you come now." "I am driving." He gestured toward the car, and took 2 little steps to encourage me. "I don't think so, Nazir. It's been a long day. You can tell Kaderbai that." "He say you come now," Nazir said grimly. He wasn't smiling, and I had the feeling that I would have to fight him if I wanted to avoid getting into the car. I was so angry and confused and tired, just then, that I actually considered it for a moment. It might cost less energy, in the long run, to fight with him, I thought, than to go with him. But Nazir screwed his face into agonized concentration, and spoke with unaccustomed courtesy. "Kaderbai told it, you come, please," like that. Kaderbai told it, "Please come see me, Mr. Lin." The word please didn't sit well with him. It was clear that, in his view, Lord Abdul Kader Khan gave orders that others quickly and gratefully obeyed. But he'd been told to request my company, rather than command it, and the English words he'd just spoken with such visible effort had been carefully memorized. I pictured him driving across the city and repeating the incantation of the foreign words to himself, as uncomfortable and unhappy with them as if they were fragments of prayer from another man's religion. Alien to him or not, the words had their effect on me, and he looked relieved when I smiled a surrender. "Okay, Nazir, okay," I sighed. "We'll go to see Kaderbai." He began to open the back door of the car, but I insisted on sitting in the front. As soon as we pulled away from the curb, he switched on the radio and turned the volume to high, perhaps to prevent conversation. The envelope that Rajan had given me was still in my hands, and I turned it over to examine both sides. It was handmade paper, pink, and about the size of a magazine cover. There was nothing written on the outside. I tore the corner and opened it to find a black and white photograph. It was an interior shot of a room, half lit, and filled with expensive ornaments from a variety of ages and cultures. In the midst of that self-conscious clutter, a woman sat on a throne-like chair. She was dressed in an evening gown of extravagant length that spilled to the floor and concealed her feet. One hand rested on an arm of the chair. The other was poised in a regal wave or an elegant gesture of dismissal. The hair was dark and elaborately coiffed, falling in ringlets that framed her round and somewhat plump face. The almond-shaped eyes stared straight into the camera. They wore a faintly neurotic look of startled indignation. The lips of her tiny mouth were pinched in a determined pout that pulled at her weak chin. A beautiful woman? I didn't think so. And a range of less than lovely impressions stared from that face: haughty, spiteful, frightened, spoiled, self-obsessed. The photograph said she was all of those things, and more. And worse. But there was something else on the photograph, something more repugnant and chilling than the unlovely face. It was the message she'd chosen to stamp in red, block letters, across the bottom. It said, "Madam Joe is happy now." Chapter 14. "Come in, Mr. Lin." "No, please, sit here. We have been expecting you." Abdul